Hello again and welcome to another video. So in this video I am going to talk about the history of teaching English as a foreign language. So as you know, learning a second language apart from your mother tongue has always been important. And English as a foreign or a second language, the teaching of this language has increased lately. So if we took a look at its history, we see that it has undergone, several changes through history, starting with the classical period. So in this era, Latin was the popular language in Europe, while English played a minor role, and the main focus was studying the Latin grammar and practicing it through translation of sentences between the L1 and L2. But later on, Latin turned into a dead language. Then English took the lead as the popular language. This era was known for the emergence of the grammar translation method as a standard classroom approach. The GTM focuses on accuracy by studying grammar rules and then practicing them by translation of sentences between the target language and the mother tongue, in order to get to know to the language literature. This is like the main goal of the GTM back then. Um, the teacher controls all the activities within the GTM with the use of the mother tongue. The mother tongue was the medium of instructions. This is how they were, like how the second language was taught. Grammar was taught deductively, and the vocabulary was taught in form of lists of isolated words to be memorized. With the focus on reading, of course, and writing, and neglecting oral communication that includes listening and speaking, the validity of the GTM started to be questioned. On the other hand, the language teaching shown interest in oral proficiency, so like a reformation was needed. And that's why in the 1880s it was the start of a period called the Reform period. The need, to promote teaching of spoken language emerged as different scholars and pioneers stated that speech is the foundation of all the language activities. The shift from traditional topics such as grammar, literature, into a practical, modern spoken skills. This led to the emergence of the direct method that was used as we can call it an umbrella term for the reform period. In this method, translation was rejected. Within the reform method, only target language was used. And then grammar was taught inductively, and priority was given to listening, speaking, because learning a second language was similar to the first language acquisition. So that's why like oral interaction and spontaneous use of language was needed. That's why we consider the direct method as a conversation based method. Um, so, based on the reform period's ideas, the scientific period has emerged in 1920s, which like shed lights on the scientific basis of teaching. You know, like presenting scientific methods that were based on theories of learning, theories of language. Um, Here, like after the World War, the USA knew that it needed to have an army that is fluent in other languages than English. So the establishment of special training programs was needed. Therefore, the audiolingual method has brought to life. It based its ideas on structuralism as a theory of language, and we are going to see later on, what is structuralism in other videos, inshallah, and on behaviorism or behavioral psychology as a theory of learning. And this method has short-term objectives like attaining a good listening and pronunciation. On the other hand, it has an optimal objective, which is to attain the near native like proficiency. When it comes to teachers, they dominate the class while students are passive. Um, Classes were taught in target language with the focus on using repetition, drills, memorization, and also the use of visual aids, reinforcements for correct answers. And this is the behavioral aspect of the audiolingual method. And also, errors are forbidden. Okay, like students need to master only accurate, correct models of language. Well, due to the passive roles of the students in the audiolingual method and the lack of focus on meaning, and also the dissatisfaction of the people with with its syllabus, the communicative language teaching has emerged with the main aim of communicating in comprehensible language and developing a communicative competence. And this method had functionalism as a theory of language and a mixture of theories of learning such as constructivism, humanism, cognitivism, and social interactionism. Also, students had active roles, whereas teachers were just facilitators, motivators, and feedback providers for learning. The focus on meaning at the expense of form was essential within the communicative language teaching. And also the introduction of a notional functional syllabus, which was a communicative syllabus that is based on the organization of materials to meet teaching language notions and functions. So, this is a brief history about the teaching of English as a foreign language. And later on, we are going to see each method and we are going to analyze it and analyze like its aspects when it comes to language teaching and language learning. So I would like to start with the grammar translation language teaching. So this method of teaching foreign languages is derived from the classical methods of teaching languages, and here I state Greek and Latin. So the grammar translation language teaching method is characterized by the study of rules. Okay, so students, grammatical rules, of course, so students would learn grammatical rules and then they would apply those rules. But how? They would apply them by translating sentences between their mother tongue and the target language. So here we have the use of the mother tongue. Okay, this is how they learn the foreign language. They would learn it with the mother tongue. Okay, and here I mentioned that vocabulary is taught in a form of word lists. Like we have a word list, isolated words that are translated, and students would read them and try to memorize them. Again, we have the focus on the application of grammar and correct sentence structures, which means here that the focus is on accuracy. Okay, and there is a little or no attention that is given to pronunciation, listening and speaking in general. Okay, and the focus is on reading and writing as major skills in this method. I would like to also to mention that there's the use of deductive grammar, which means that students would start from general aspects until they reach specific aspects. Here, like, students are given rules and they would apply these rules, and this is what we call the deductive grammar. It's the opposite of the inductive grammar. So this is the grammar translation method. The good thing about this method is there's this aspect of learning a lot of vocabulary. So students are exposed to rich and enormous amounts of vocabulary, and the reinforcement of reading and writing skills. Okay, but the weaknesses of this method is that because of the neglection of listening and speaking, students would have would be poor. They have poor listening and speaking skills. Okay, because of the neglection of these skills, and also it's not. It doesn't have this interaction aspect, and students don't take initiatives. They don't, contribute in the lesson. So they have, we can say, a passive role. The teacher is the one who takes charge of everything. He controls the lesson, and students are just absorb knowledge, and they won't take initiatives or contribute in the lesson. So this is the grammar translation method. I try to be as brief as possible. Next, we are going to see the direct method. So hello again. So now let's go with the direct method. I will try to be brief as possible. So for the direct method, we can say that it came as a reaction to the grammar translation method. Like here, all the teaching is conducted in the target language. There is no use of the mother tongue as in the grammar translation method. The second thing is that grammar is taught inductively, not deductively, which means that you give opportunities to students to figure out the rules, okay, so that they can discover the rule. Another thing is that it is focused on speaking and listening, not like the grammar translation. It neglects these skills and it focuses on reading and writing. So here, for the direct method, the focus is on speaking and listening, also the students use the target language as much as possible, because it is believed that this is the suitable way to learn like another language, is to use the language, not just to know the what, but also the how. So use the language so that you can like we can say grasp it as soon as you can. Another thing is that for the direct method, when it comes to vocabulary, it is thought through known words for students, and also the use of authentic objects, pictures, realia, and the vocabulary is derived from the everyday life speech, everyday life conversation. So we can say that is conversation based. Okay. For the teachers, they do not give everything to students. They do not give rules, not like in the grammar translation method. And also, as I said, they would give the opportunity for students to take initiatives, to contribute in the lesson, to derive and figure out rules, and also they don't opt for like translations, so they focus on using only and only the target language. So this is the direct method. I try to be brief as possible, and we will see another method. Hello again. So after dealing with the grammar translation method and the direct method, which are included in the pre-method era, we are going to see one of the methods that are known in the method era. So as I said, the method era is characterized by the fact that its methods are seen as scientific, which means they are based on theories and approaches, okay? And in order to make it easier for you to grasp these methods, we are going to split, make major key elements that we are going to see in each method. We have approach, we have the design, and the procedures. So the method that we are going to deal with this time is the audiolingual method. This method is based on structuralism as a theory of language, and behaviorism or behavioral psychology as a theory of learning. In the next videos, inshallah, I will deal with these terms, what is structuralism, behaviorism, and all this. For the design, we start first with the objectives. So the objectives of this method, we have short-term objectives and long-term objectives. So for the short-term objectives, we have to achieve a good listening and to have like an accurate pronunciation. For the long-term objectives, we have to achieve the near native proficiency. For the syllabus, it's a structure-based syllabus, and it is also lexical, okay? And taking into consideration that listening and speaking are studied first, then reading and writing, because here in this method, it is believed that speech is the foundation of learning a language. For the types of learning and teaching activities, we have first dialogues, we have drills, and also memorization, and these are considered as an aspect of behaviorism. For the learner's rules, the learner here has a reactive rule. He only reacts to what is given to him or her. He has little control over the content, and the learner is seen as an imitator for the models that the teacher gives to him. For the teacher's roles, first the teacher is considered as like a leader of the class. He is active. He models the rules and structures for students, and he controls the practices, and he monitors the students' performances. And the last thing we are going to see in the design is the instructional materials. So for the instructional materials, they are teacher-oriented, which means that the teacher chooses what to teach to students. In the early phases of learning, there is no textbook for students, only the reliance on the teacher's book, and also tape recorders, audiovisuals, which are taken and analyzed in language laboratories. For the procedures, we are going to see some of the techniques that are used in this method. Like, first of all, the teacher would provide some dialogues for students that contain the key structures that they are going to analyze later. And students, they would, repeat and memorize the dialogues individually and correlate, which means with their classmates. The teacher provides immediate correction of pronunciation and grammar, because we want students to memorize only the correct models. That means no errors. Then students would memorize the dialogues. Then they would be presented quarterly, and the dialogue would be analyzed later by the selection of some key structures and be explained for the students. Then we have later the reading, writing, follow-up activities. And at the end, students would copy the sentences that they were analyzed before by the teacher. So for the audiolingual method, or it is entitled the army method, it was like emerged after the First World War, because the US realized that the need for a personnel that is fluent in the army was like obvious and needed. This made like the US government to think of creating specialized training programs for its army, and these programs would promote oral and oral skills, which led to the emergence of some programs like the Army specialized training programs. And also the US funded universities in order to improve the foreign language teaching for military purposes. The objective of those programs was to attain the what we call the conversational proficiency in foreign languages. So this is in general what led to the development of the audiolingual method, which is based on structural linguistics and behaviorism. But as any method, it was criticized, starting with the neglection of the creativity of students, because as I said, they have only a reactive role. Students only repeat and memorize even without understanding the content. Consequently, students don't use what they have learned outside schools in real life situations. Also, since students have little control over the content, they don't take initiative and they don't assess themselves, which results in the lowering the students' talking time, the STT. One more thing is that after the intervention of Noam Chomsky with his famous approach, the innatist approach to language learning, where he claims that people are born with a language capacity or a language faculty that enables them to acquire and understand, use the language. And this goes in the opposite of the theoretical foundation of the audiolingual method. So, language learning is about creation and innovation of sentence patterns governed by rules that are innate. So this is the claim of Noam Chomsky, and he criticized the drills and the memorization of sentence patterns and structures. So this led to the loss of the popularity of the audiolingual method, which led to the intervention of other proposals within the language teaching learning process. So yeah, this was the audiolingual method, and in the next video we're going to see, in the next part we're going to see another method. Well, after the validity of the audiolingual method was questioned, and since the roles of students are passive, which kills their creativity, and also the lack of focus on meaning, and since behaviorism was criticized mainly by Noam Chomsky, the communicative language teaching, also known as the notional functional approach, emerged. Moving from classical teaching, traditional grammar and vocabulary, to the emphasis on meaning and functions. That's why its theory of language is functional, which means that For communicative language teaching, a language is seen as a set of structures that have, different functions. On the other hand, its theory of learning is somehow eclectic, since it is based on a mix of cognitive, social interactionist, and humanistic theories. We're going to deal with humanism later in another video. Well, let's continue. Concerning the design of this method, starting with its objective first, the method aims to enable learners to communicate in a comprehensible language, then aims to help learners to develop communicative competence, which is composed of four main elements. First, the grammatical competence, which refers to the ability to produce correct utterances grammatically. The second aspect is sociolinguistics competence. In other words, it's the ability to understand the context in which communication takes place. Then we have discourse competence, which means to produce coherent utterances that are logically comprehensible. And the last aspect is the strategic competence. It refers to the ability of providing solutions to communication breakdowns. One more last objective of the communicative language teaching is that it focuses on integrating the four skills together without any discrimination or prioritization of any skill. That means the integration of reading, writing, listening, and speaking at the same time. When we deal with the syllabus of the communicative language teaching, it is neither structural nor analytical, but it is notional and functional, which means it focuses on using language to communicate effectively, including the selection of topics that are interesting for students. And here we refer to the needs of the learners, and also to perform meaningful tasks in which language is used meaningfully in authentic and realistic situations. The communicative language teaching implements activities that are based on negotiation of meaning and sharing information and interaction. And here we can set some examples like group discussions, pair work, role plays. Therefore, it is considered a learner-centered method, okay, in which like the learners or the learner is an active participant who shows its creativity through using language. He creates his own meaning by working collaboratively and negotiating with other pairs whom like he exchange feedback with. Okay, so here like comes the role of interaction. And concerning the teacher, he is considered as a need analyzer whose role is to plan instructions that meet the learner's needs. He is also considered as a counselor for students, like in the community language learning that we are going to see later, and a group manager whose mission is to gather students, and organize activities and organize classroom sitting. Concerning the role of instructional materials, their main role is the promotion of communicative language use. We have text-based like materials, task-based materials, and of course realia. When it comes to text-based materials, here we mean that we are talking about textbooks, and these textbooks should like be characterized by some sort of sequencing of language practice, of course depending on the simplicity and the degree of of familiarity with the content. Concerning task-based materials, they serve in the promotion and the support of communicative language teaching in classrooms. And here we can say like exercise handbooks and those activity cards. And of course, interaction booklets. Then we have realia. Realia refers to real world objects. They are brought to the classrooms by teachers in order to add more authenticity to the teaching process. Say, for example, you have a vocabulary lesson about fruits and vegetables. It is preferably to bring real fruits and real vegetables. Finally, the communicative language teaching implements various techniques and procedures that promote communicative language use. Therefore, when we talk about a typical communicative language teaching session, it would be as follows. So the first thing is that teachers present a brief dialogue and then an oral practice of each utterance of the dialogue segment to be presented that day. Okay? Then we have questions and answers based on the dialogue topic. Let's not forget that we said they are topic based. Of course, we have also question and answers related to the student's personal experience, and we have the study of the basic communicative expressions in the dialogue. And also we have the oral production activities proceeding like from guided to freer communication activities. And the last thing is students would copy the dialogue, and of course they would have a homework to do, and the last thing is the evaluation of the learning process. So this is basically the communicative language teaching, and we are going to see other methods like Suggestopdia and community language learning that are characterized by humanistic approaches, and of course we are going to see some aspects of humanism. Hello again. So now let's deal with the community language learning. So this method is based on structuralism and functionalism as theories of language. For theories of learning, it is based on humanism and social interactionism. When it comes to the design of this method, let's start first with the objectives. For the objectives, we have encouraging students' independence, which means that students would become like autonomous and responsible for their learning, and of course to achieve the near native like proficiency. For the syllabus, for this method, there is no conventional syllabus uh, since it is topic-based syllabus, which means that the lessons are based on the topics that are interesting for students. For the types of learning and teaching activities, we see that there is a mixture between innovative and traditional activities. For the learner's roles, here the learner is seen as a client, a listener, and a counselor to other learners. For the teacher, he is seen as a counselor, which means he is consulted by learners. And of course, he is a supporter, motivator. He tries to maintain a safe environment for students. He is an advisor and an assistant for students. For the instructional materials, well, there are like no textbooks, and the lesson, as I said, is built on interactions between learners. For the techniques that are used within this method, well, for the number of students, it's from 6 to 12, and they would sit in circles. Students interact, which means there's group work, like interaction between students, discussions, debates, and the teacher is out of the circle, of course, and he walks behind them, and he would provide help if necessary, clarify some things, and see if there's anything that is ambiguous, and of course provide help for students. The students would first introduce themselves in their mother tongue, and the teacher explains the objectives of the course. Then a conversation takes place in L2. So we see here that there is a mixture between the use of the L1 and the L2. Students would express their feelings, and the teacher selects some sentences to discuss grammar and spelling. The teacher encourages students to take initiatives and ask questions. And the last thing is that students would copy the sentences that they analyzed while the discussion. Now let's deal with Suggestopdia. For Suggestopdia, there are some common things between this method and the community language learning. So, as a theory of language, Suggestopdia relies on structuralism and functionalism. But for a theory of learning, it is based on behavioral psychology, cognitivism, and humanism. Concerning the design, let's start with the objectives as we do. Well, the first thing is to improve the language proficiency. Second thing is the ability to understand problematic situations. And the third thing is to solve these problematic situations. For the syllabus, the syllabus of the Suggestedpedia is a 30 days course with 10 units, 6 days per week, and 4 hours per day. And there's another thing is that the dialogue of that is used should contain like 1200 words. So as you see, like the syllabus of this method is specific and should be respected as it is. For the types of learning and teaching activities, well, we have listening activities, we have discussions, and question and answers. These are the frequent activities. For the learner's rules, well, the learner takes initiative. They would sit in circles and absorb what they receive from the teacher, and they would speak spontaneously. For the teacher's rules, he should be someone who takes care of his uniform. Like he should have a good uniform, good behaviors, positive attitudes, encourage positivity and positive reception, positive retention. And he should have singing and acting skills. For the instructional materials, we have tapes, posters, textbooks. So it's like a mixture of instructional materials. The second thing is that traumatic themes should be avoided, and textbooks with attractive layout and of course an emotional charge, and this is where the humanistic aspects reside. For some of the procedures or techniques that are used in this method, the first thing is that there is a review of the previous courses or previous materials. The use of dialogues to present new materials. The third thing is that there is a discussion about grammar and vocabulary. Here in this method, there's also translation into L1. Then students ask questions because, as we said, they would take initiative. Practice new materials. Then what is a bit weird about this method is that students would play music, get relaxed while closing their eyes, and of course there is no homework assigned for them. So this is the Suggestopdia, and as we see, it is based a lot on humanistic approaches that view the learner as a whole, not just his or her intellectual side. Well, for humanism, for Stivik, he managed to state 5 basic emphases of humanism. Okay, so the first thing is we have feelings. For humanism, it forbids whatever prevents people from feeling good emotionally. Okay. The second thing is that is social relations, which means friendships, cooperations, collaborations, and social interactions. The third thing is responsibility, which means that learners should be responsible and they should have a sense of critical observation and examination and correction and reflection about the information that they absorb. The fourth element is intellect, which means to have freedom of using one's mind like the way he or she likes. And the fifth element, which is so important, is the self-actualization. Self-actualization means to bring out the best version of the students by encouraging them to realize their abilities, their potential, and what are what are they capable of achieving. And not only that, but also helping them to be more responsible, more independent, and of course to set a goal for their lives which will increase their intrinsic motivation to keep going until they achieve this goal. For Moscovitz, when it comes to humanism, the emphasis for Moscovitz is about feelings. Okay, learning is affected by how students feel. So therefore, there should be like a consideration first to the mental, emotional, psychological state of these students. To like achieve an effective learning. So, in general, this is humanism, and these are the aspects of humanism and the characteristics of humanism. And we are going to see other methods and other aspects of theories of language and theories of learning in the next part. Hello again. So, after dealing with the communicative language teaching, um, now we are going to deal with what we call the post-method era. Okay, because normally it was known that it's after the communicative language teaching. The communicative language teaching was the last method we can say in the method era. So dissatisfaction grows towards the era of methods that dominated language teaching. Therefore, the notion of methods was questioned, which led to the emergence of what we call the post-method era. Well, normally there are different reasons, numerous reasons that contributed in the emergence of this era. But we are going to see some of the main reasons that contributed in the emergence of this era. Mainly the existence of certain methods in language teaching that are seen like that they do not meet the needs of language teaching. To go deeper, like first different methods shown their limitations since there was a huge gap between what is theoretical and what is practiced in classrooms. The second reason is that methods are often viewed prescriptive. That is to say that theorists prescribe to teachers what to teach, how to teach, and they impose on them a set of activities, materials, techniques, and strategies in order to achieve predetermined objectives. And this may lead to breakdowns between teachers and methods used while teaching. Of course, this can affect negatively on both teachers and students. Another reason is that any method is not complete. In other words, there is always a missing piece due to, for example, to prioritizing some skills on others, the use of certain materials and neglecting other materials, or some methods they would teach grammar, some don't, some they would rely on cognitive processes, and some focus on just feelings and emotions first. Also, the methods they were emerged to be obeyed, which does not create what we call it a room for innovation and intervention of teachers. Finally, some methods include unrealistic objectives, which are not likely to be achieved at all. So, post-method era came as, we can call it an alternative, to eliminate the notion of generalizability and to focus more on particularity. Okay, that's why sometimes it is called the pedagogy of particularity. That is to say, it helps a certain teacher interacting with certain learners with certain predetermined goals in a certain socio-cultural environment that cannot be generalized neither on the national nor on the global level, okay? Since it requires a unique teaching style that meets with certain learners' needs. The post-method era aims to reduce the distance between what is theoretical and practical, which means bridging the gap between theorists and practitioners, which paves the way for teachers to be practitioners and, of course, theorizers of their own practice. So, guys, this is the post-method era, or the post-pedagogy, or the pedagogy of particularity. These all names that refer to the same thing. And we meet, inshallah, in another video with other aspects of language and other topics, inshallah. Please give a thumbs up, and I would appreciate if you subscribe for more videos, inshallah. Peace.